Now, if you're taking on DIY electrical projects around your house, you know, even swapping out a simple outlet can be fairly overwhelming when you go into the home improvement store and you see the vast number of options that you have when it comes to simple outlets. It's pretty hard to know if you're making the right choice. So let's look at the two main types of outlets. First would be a cheap 75-cent residential grade duplex outlet compared to a more expensive, about $2.50 commercial grade, or also called spec grade outlet. One great way to see what are the actual differences in the designs and is it worth stepping up to the commercial grade is to look internally to both of these. So let's cut them open, see what's going on so you can make a smart decision around your house. So first up, we'll focus on the residential grade 15 amp outlet from Legrand. This is 75 cents. It's just the de facto standard outlet. And it should be noted, this is not tamper resistant. It does not have the tamper resistant shutters built into that faceplate. And you most likely, if you're installing in your area, check your local code, you probably are going to need to use tamper resistant. But the internals will be the same. So just use that flathead screwdriver, open things up, and I'm kind of actually surprised with this design. It's quite a bit different than a residential grade I opened up a while back from Leviton. Then we'll turn our attention to the 15 amp commercial grade, also known as spec grade outlet from Legrand. In the past, this has kind of been my go-to. If you buy a 10 pack, they're usually around $2, and you can look below the video in the description for some links referencing exactly these different outlets, and then also the different tools you'll see me use throughout the video. So I'll do something similar here, just trying to take out that bottom portion of the duplex faceplate. And I just don't want to damage the internal, so we can do a fair side-by-side comparison between the residential grade and the commercial grade. So we'll just trim out these outsides here, and then with the flathead should be able to pop things off, and then with the micro side cutters come in handy just for snipping things off and loosening it up. And it does look like there has been some changes. So let's compare these side by side and then ultimately let you know which one would I go with on the projects around the house. But first, just to clear up any confusion, you're probably gonna have to use a TR, tamper resistant, in your area, and we're not looking at tamper resistant outlets today. But don't worry, it's still applicable. Tamper resistant, like this residential grade one from Eaton, the tamper resistant shutters are built into the housing. So the actual meat or the guts of the outlet, like we're looking at today and talking about today, is the same whether it's tamper resistant or not. And then you might not want that standard duplex outlet in your house. You want a more modern Decora series. Again, don't worry, that is just in that front white housing. These are two residential grade from Legrand, and you can see they're actually exactly the same, just swapping out that front white housing. That's the only difference. So again, the internals, what we're pointing out today, will be the same and applicable across residential and commercial grade. Now, there's a few things I want to point out with these designs that kind of close the deal for me in terms of which one I go with. This is the residential grade internally. You'll see you have some separation here with some internal plastic housing pieces from your hot side, indicated by your gold terminals, and then your yoke internally here, which is what carries your ground. There's not much separation there. So if you were to create a lot of heat here, maybe you have some resistance that's loosened up over time, you could burn through that plastic and have an internal short possibility. Does that happen very often? Probably not, but when you compare that to your commercial grade, one, the contacts are much thicker. They're actually a thicker gauge of metal than what you get with the residential grade. And you can just see separation wide, you have a lot more clearance, and then this ground doesn't travel through an internal yoke. It actually is riveted to an external yoke right here. So it keeps quite a bit more separation than what you would have with that residential grade. So that's a pretty big selling point for me. And I will give it to Legrand, even on the residential, they have a much better design than the original residential Leviton outlet that I opened up years ago, which have kind of this U-shaped design, which is not good. Once that loosens up, it is done and plugs will be falling out of that outlet. So both commercial and residential have a pretty good design overall. Now, one negative aspect to this residential grade, and really all residential grades, are these holes in the back that are made for 14 gauge wire. That is also what the strip gauge is used for. You would use the strip gauge not if you're doing side wiring around the terminals, like we do with this 14 gauge in the clockwise direction, that's actually not what the strip gauge is used for. You need to strip a little bit more wire if you're going to do side wiring, which you should. This is for the backstabbing feature, which I am not a fan of and do not recommend. What you do is you just place the 14 gauge, you insert it into the outlet, and then from the neutral side, indicated by your silver terminals, that is done. Backstabbing is separate from the screw terminals. You do not have to tighten this down to have a secure connection, but what that does, it also promotes bad behavior where you don't tighten those down. And now, especially on the hot side, your screws are protruding past the housing. So if you had a small metal handy box, you're more likely to make contact with that handy box and have a short. But let's zoom in and show you what is actually going on here with backstabbing. So when you look internally to backstabbing, there is a small lever arm here that presses the 14 gauge wire up against the contact. That is what holds that in place. So when you press a small flathead screwdriver into that slot, you're actually able to remove that wire. And this is a one and done feature. You should not be reusing backstabbing, but to be honest, I don't recommend you use backstabbing at all. And that is really kind of the killer feature of why I like what commercial grade has, which is called back wiring. This looks very similar. There's holes in the back that you insert wire into. So we would just insert in through here. But this is not backstabbing, and you probably are already seeing the difference. The main difference is there's an internal plate that actually tightens against that wire. So as I tighten down the screw terminal, that wire in there is going to get pinched between the contacts and that plate, and that is what makes for the secure hold and plenty of contact area. So just note, backstabbing and back wiring are very different. Now I want to hear what you guys think. Down in the comments, just let me know residential or commercial. Pretty simple, but that's all I need for you. Do you prefer residential grade or do you prefer commercial grade? Personally, I stick with the Legrand commercial grade. I will give it to Legrand that they have one of the best residential grade that I've seen from the internal design. So if I was gonna go residential, I would go with Legrand, especially compared to Leviton or Eaton. But for a few extra bucks, I think it's worth it. You're gonna already go through all the effort for swapping out your outlets. Why not spend a couple more bucks and get something that's gonna last many more years? Now, if you wanna see one of these guys in action, where I was installing a new outlet down an existing wall, I did not go into the basement or crawl space, I did not go up into the attic, and I did not have to do any drywall or painting. It kind of sounds like a riddle, but there is a method that I wanna show you, and it can really help you out on your next project. So check out that video right there. Or if you want to see a quite a bit new design from Leviton, which I do like the direction they're going, it combines my favorite Wago lever nuts with a standard outlet. Right here is an example. Check out the video down here and I'll go over the new features on that outlet, which are available at Home Depot now. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next ones. Take care.